Hello and welcome to another episode of A Junior, a Senior and I. Today we got a weird one, I think. Today I'm joined by Aslihan and Stefano to talk about tech workers and music. Both work or have worked in tech. Both have produced songs and composed songs and are artists. And I mistakenly or not believe there is an outsized proportion of people in tech that are in music as well. But before we go deeper into that subject, let's actually meet our guests and listen to their music. Asli, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less, please?
Hiya, my name is Aslihan, artist name Aslihan Kyle. I make neo soul R&B music and I have about 3 years experience as a programmer.
Cool. And the song you allowed me to play today is
Yes.
Silken. I don't know if you want to say something about
Silken. No.
Let's hear it
for
then.
itself.
Does it mean something that we're sober? How often you come over? Tell me this, please. Does it mean something that we're sober? How often you come over? 'Cause I don't wanna feel it.
I do actually want to say something. Shout out to Lucas Simon, or Lucas Simon in English. who produced that track. He is a producer and sound engineer based in Brussels.
Cool. I'll make sure to ask you for his details so we can also link him on the show notes. Without further ado, Stefano, what about you? Can you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less, please?
Hi, Pablo. Hi, Aslihan, everyone. My name is Stefano. I'm Italian, based in Dublin, and I'm a musician, music producer, recording engineer, and former system engineer. That's me. And by the way, Aslihan, that song is amazing.
Thank you.
Cool. And if I'm not mistaken, the song you allowed me to play today was with a former band of yours?
Yes. So I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm an artist per se. Like, I released a few things as myself, but I've mostly played in bands and produced other artists. And this one, is, I think I sent you Tiger Hour. Yeah, it's very different from what we heard before. That's my former band.
Cool. Let's hear it. Great. I feel like a radio host now that I introduced songs. Both songs were really beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to play it.
Oh,
I love that song.
Oh, thanks.
It sounds like a high-speed car chase in a detective cartoon.
That was the plan. I mean, the concept behind the whole album was to make songs that would sound like a soundtrack for like a 70s cop movies, kind of like that. Yeah.
Very much succeeded.
Yeah. Thanks.
Here is where I feel out of my element, because although I chose this topic, and this topic is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, I have no sense of rhythm. I know basically nothing about music. And so, for example, the connection that Asli just made about the song being a car chase that she got immediately flew way above my head. Uh, so if I make any mistakes venturing in this music and tech relationship, do not hesitate to correct me. I guess my first question is kind of validating this feeling I have of there is an outsized proportion of people that are both in tech and in music, or have worked in tech and do music, or things like that. Is it a feeling that you share?
I don't know about music in particular, but I do remember that when I was doing my switch from, because I was working as a sound engineer before I did programming, and when I was doing my switch and I mentioned it to some of my like friends and stuff who were also sound engineers, they mentioned that it was not that uncommon to hear of, like that they'd had heard of that type of sound engineer to programmer pipeline before. So there seems to be something like that. And I think there might also be a bit of a musician to sound engineer pipeline. So maybe in that direction, there's just like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, in my personal life, so I see a connection between art or creativity in general and like tech workers. Now, personally, I think I've met more photographer than musicians working in tech, which is interesting. I definitely met musicians or music producer working in tech as well. And now I don't know if they started as musician or music producer and moved to tech, or by the other way around. I don't know if it's disproportionate, but I definitely feel that for anyone working in tech, there must be like a release valve into creativity in some, different way than coding. Some prefer photography, some prefer music, some prefer writing. Writing is another art form. So, and I think that's important and really valuable.
I want to dig deeper into this subject you just launched by taking us away from the outline that
Already.
I gave both of you already.
I'm already going off topic, yes.
In the first 10 minutes. I want to dig into this escape valve you mentioned, right? Because I want to understand better. Is it because you see tech work as something more rigid and constrained, and then you have to have this valve to more unprocessed expression or unfiltered expression or however you want to call it?
It's more about how you release your creativity. Everyone can be creative. Everyone has a creative side of them. Some dig more into their creativity part, some less. But I think everyone can be creative. That's for sure. I was a system engineer, so to be honest, there was nothing really creative about being a system engineer. You know what I mean? And especially if I look at coding and all the people I work with. Now I have to say I worked for a long time in really big corporates. I've seen a lot of people actually, going in with the best of intention and then realizing, I would imagine doing something completely different, but, I spend most of my time in meetings and, coding for, some really not interesting part of the website, whatever. So I guess it depends where you work and how much coding is how you make sense of your life. Creativity is how you make sense of life in a way, and how you make sense of everything around you. And some make sense of what they have around them through math, through coding, through, anything tech related. So I guess if that's what really moves you, you may not need another creative release valve. I know people that work in tech, from 9 to 5, in a company, then they go home and they start coding for themselves, and I find it crazy, but if that's your dog, as they say in Japanese, if that's your way and you're happy with it, of course you should do it. And that is how you make sense of, the environment and your life. So, yeah.
I find that interesting because I I would actually interpret it differently, in that I perceive like coding and tech and stuff to be, I feel like it's very problem solving oriented, and problem solving is creativity, in my opinion. And so I'm not surprised that there's an overlap. I think at the end of the day, people who work in tech and enjoy working in tech are people who enjoy problem solving and therefore enjoy being creative. And that will then trickle down into other areas of interest in their life. And the most obvious area is art. And so whether that's photography or music or writing or anything, I would theorize that it's because the fundamental mechanism is the same, or the area of interest is the same. And it's just that it manifests in different ways in art versus tech. Yes.
I had heard or read, or I don't know where or when or if it's right, but that music is quite related to math, or related or loosely related, but it's a creative application of math, right? And programming is, or at least the programming I'm used to or that I do is kind of that as well, right? I have a very rigid set of rules that I can create something different with, right? Do you see that relationship as well, or am I completely...
I don't know if I'd call... Well, so I think when you're saying music is very mathematical, I think we're like, that's how people interpret music theory. But I don't know to what extent I'd call it rules, because music theory comes after the creation of the music. It's a language built to explain what's happening and not the other way around. And so I don't know if I'd use the word rules as being the constraints with regards to music.
I always say, music is a language. So, of course, if you're learning a new language, you apply some rules, you apply the grammar, and even learning a language could be considered as math in a way, because, you have a construct, of a phrase, whatever, and, you have rules. But then you use the language to say something, and that's not math. That's, yourself. So there are rules, but, within those rules, there's a world of anything,
And I think the rules, if anything, they only apply if you're referencing specific things, but you don't have to.
No, yeah, and the good thing of rules is that you can break them,
That's it.
So, once that, somebody say, oh yeah, music has 12 notes. So, what can you do with 12 notes? There's hundreds of years of history.
Even that's arguable. That's
Exactly.
Just Western music. So
also, exactly.
Subdivision goes to 16 in in the Indian musical system, I think. Whereas in Western musical system, it only goes to half tones. So
okay, I'm gonna ask a really stupid question. I'm sorry, but I thought notes were a discrete thing.
What do you mean?
In the sense that, if you're doing a la, it's a la, and if you're doing a sol, it's a sol. But from what I'm understanding, it would be more of a continuum, and we just decided to call certain points in that continuum notes.
This can get really nerdy if you start talking about are you going based off 440 or because there's
go as nerd as you want.
I don't have the knowledge to fully go nerdy, but I know that without getting that deep, la is la, but also la is la in the Western music system. And whereas in Western music systems, the subdivisions go, so you can divide one tone into semitones. The further east you go, basically, the further subdivisions you'll come across. So I think already in Turkish music, you go into quarter tones. So you'll actually hear, and notation will write quarter tones, which you won't find much in Western music. Although some more it's not impossible. There are versions of that here. And then I've heard that when you get to the Indian system, you go into 8th and potentially 16th notes. I'm not 100% sure about the 16th, but it's a continuum in that it's frequency. So yeah, it just depends on how small a slice you want to take out of the frequency and count as a unit. Does that explain it?
What I was picturing when you were explaining it was a rainbow.
The rainbow?
Yeah, like a rainbow, when you see it on a picture, has like 8 colors or 5 colors or whatever, right? But if you see it in reality, it's kind of a continuum. At some point you're in a color, and then at some point you're in another color, and you can choose where you're looking at the color, right? It was more or less what I was picturing when you were explaining it.
That's actually a good visual. It is just a question of where you decide to create the subdivisions, but different people can subdivide in different places, and all of them can still be correct in their choices.
Okay, without getting us outside of this rabbit hole that could take the episode that I find really interesting, what appeals you in music and in tech, if both appeal to you?
Well, both do appeal to me. That's already a good start.
That's a good start.
I'd actually have to think about that one. Stefano, do you have an answer to that yet?
There's three aspects of music: as a listener, as a performer, and as a producer, somebody that is helping someone else to create their songs. For me, it's all about, as I mentioned before, the creativity and, the voice that an artist have. It's like seeing the world through their language, through their eyes, through, their skill set. It's understanding all these different variables, again, you have hundreds of years of music, countless of artists and composers, and everyone created their own piece of history with music, with their own emotional connection to that language. As a listener, hearing all these differences is amazing. It's really, especially, we are not going to touch AI now today, but especially in the world of AI, understanding all these differences, what really makes us human. As a performer, as a producer, what appeals to me, it's hard to identify, I guess, because music is my language, so it's what feels more natural to me. And also, one as a performance, probably, and although also as a music producer, the community aspect is really great. Sharing a stage with other people, sharing a rehearsal room with other people, and play together, listen to one another, and that connection. I only found it while playing with other people, or being in the studio with other people, and really see the magic unfolds. Like, I work with singers that came to the studio with doubts on themselves for the song that they are going to record, and seeing them unfold and getting the confidence and make amazing performances, getting out of the studio a little bit different. I don't know, it just excites me. Aslihan, you were right. What really appeals to me of the tech side is the problem solving. That is probably what really kept me into tech for a long time. I guess I was missing the other side of the community aspect, the helping others develop their voice and, see creativity unfold. But that was probably my bad experience. I don't know. Maybe if I didn't work in big corporate, probably would have been better, but,
Asli, if you allow me to rebound just very quickly before I pass you the torch, because when you were describing this, Stefano, this part of music that tells a story, the story of a culture, and then this sharing part, I was picturing code, and I think code tells a story of the culture of the company that produced that code. Like, when I see not one file or one function, but when you start seeing patterns emerge in a code base, to me, it tells a story. It tells a story of the compromises that were made, of the people that were there. And I can kind of see, or I have been able to see in my experiences in companies, the phases the company went through by having to work in different aged files like files that were at the very beginning have one where the team is not there anymore, but have one style, and then you see hybridization of the styles when the team grows or when the team keeps changing, etc., etc. And on the other hand, this part of community you mentioned of creating music together, etc. I've been very lucky to being able to do ensemble programming, which is everyone behind one screen with one keyboard. And that's exactly the feeling I got when I was doing it, because you're creating something together, and that creativity is really in the foreground, because there is only one person typing, which is the mechanical or not creative part of the coding process, right? So I really, it was resonating with my experience in tech, the way you were describing your experience with music or your feelings about music. Sorry, Asli, I'm passing the torch back to you now.
All good. I was actually going to bounce off of what Stefano said about tech being very problem-solving-y. And I think that's the main thing that interests me in tech. It's kind of like just doing puzzles, and I got paid for it. It's pretty cool. I've always loved puzzles. I once did a fully like black puzzle. It was just a square of, I think it was 50 on 30 black, and it was ridiculous to do this. But this is how much I enjoyed doing puzzles. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I don't mind this. This is fun. And it's relatively stable. That's nice to come from after like the music industry. So that's what I enjoy about tech. And what I enjoy about music is it's playful and, to me, very unrestrained. Like it's very therapeutic for me personally. I feel like there's a lot of things. I've said this thing before of like, I feel like I put the worst of myself in my music because I can hide it behind nice melodies and stuff. And then I re-listen and I'm like, that's not even that bad. But these are things that I like wouldn't necessarily say out loud, but I can get it out through music because I get to make it pretty and make it fun to actually process through and things. So yeah, for me, those are the main things I like about music. It's I like that I can create a persona to make my music, and it's very playful, and I can just like, one of my favorite things is when I'm gonna say a bad word, but fuck around, and then I come across something, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds really cool. Wait, I'm gonna have to use that. This is so much fun. So I'm just like, I feel like I'm letting the child in me just do whatever the hell it wants, and then people compliment me on it. They're like, oh, I like that thing in that song. And I'm like, haha, I know, right? I don't know how I did it.
Yeah, that's what actually really moved me into music production, because I am a bit nerdy and I like being in a studio with all my toys and all my gears and, having other people with me say, can you try do this? Can we, why don't you play a drum kit with, I don't know, with a guitar cable and see how it sounds? Maybe it sounds crap, but, there might be something there, You see videos of, composers like Hans Zimmer or, like film composers that do all this weird stuff that ended up in the movies. And it's like, oh, that's a really interesting sound. How did they make it? It was maybe somebody blowing into a PVC tube, like some weird stuff with effects and, compressors and shit. So, being playful is, sometimes you can't afford to be playful in code because, you may destroy something, especially in production. But.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you can express that playfulness or that joy in creating code, right? But I see what you mean, that it feels like the constraints are way less when you're creating something really from scratch than like this actually has to work, right? Like Asli or Stefano, if you're creating something and you're trying shit out, I also said a bad word, but I think all the kids are asleep. It's late. If you're trying shit out and it doesn't work, you can just not put it out, not present it to the public, and you're fine. And so you do have a lot of freedom in that sense, right?
Now, the interesting thing with music is once you release something, you don't care if it ruffles any feather. You don't care if it's not scalable. You know what I mean? Like, many times in coding, you release something and say, okay, it's working, but would it handle like much more traffic? So you have to start getting into quote unquote best practices, or into some restraint to make that piece of code more performant and more effective. With music, you don't care. It's out in the wild. That's it. You like it, you don't like it. It's there. So
It does bring me to another tangent, but have you regretted something that you have put out in the wild and were like, oh, I can't take it away now?
So what I have regretted was I I once did vocals for someone's, like, they just needed a vocalist to come in and record for a uni project or something. It wasn't a style I particularly enjoyed, but I was like, fine, I'll do it. And then they went and like put it on streaming platforms with my stage name as a featuring artist. And I was like, I didn't have enough tracks online for it to be inconspicuous. It was just like right there. And I'm like, what? We didn't talk about this. So that's and because someone else uploaded it, I don't have control over whether or not it appears on my page. So that's the only thing I like regret, is that at that point I was like, I need to start writing contracts every time I record, I think, because this is so weird. And then on the flip side, the one time, I think the first track that my voice was on that got released publicly, I was a big fan of it. And the label put my legal name and not my stage name, so it never got attached to my profile. And then the artist fell out with the label, so they couldn't go back and ask them to fix it. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I was so proud of that one, and it's not even associated to me. So I guess not really regrets, but it's just like logistical things that have annoyed me in the past. You, Stefano?
Oh yeah, as a producer, recording engineer, mixing engineer, especially, well, I'm still learning, so I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any means. So every time I release something, or the artist release something we work on together, a few months after I listened to the song, I said, that mix doesn't really sound great. Like that voice is too loud.
Yeah.
That guitar should be a bit loud. It lasts for a few seconds because I have, my critical ears listening to the song, not as a fan, as audience, but as the person that actually work on that song. And it's like, I knew I should have done this differently. But then I'm also like, yeah, you know what? I don't care. The artist is happy. Millions of streams, millions, thousands of streams. Fans are enjoying the song. That's the important part. But still, said, the voice is way too low.
To be honest,
effect is too loud.
I recognize that, but also I see it as a signpost that, oh, my tastes are getting better, or my ear is getting better. So it for me is part of the process. I think it's normal to listen to stuff you've done in the past and be like, oh, I could do that better now. I'm like, yeah, I hope I could do that better now. It's been 2 years since it came out. I've been doing more stuff. And so I don't see it as a regret. I see it as just part of the process and thing to accept. And it's a good sign, actually.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. It's a regret for a few seconds, but then you also say, yeah, it's progress. Progress is good. Perfection, it's hard to reach perfection, but progress, it's better than perfection for me. So
when you release, and I'm guessing that question goes more to Asli, because you have more of the artist side than Stefano, who is at least talking more in the producer side of things. But when you release music, what are your expectations? Like, is it, I hope a lot of people listen to it? Is it, I'll put it on and whatever? Is it, like, what are you expecting from that music?
I can't really say I hope that a lot of people listen to it, because I don't do the necessary marketing for that to happen. So that would be completely unrealistic of me to hope for. But for me, success in music is respect from my peers and the people that I like. So if people whose music I like tell me, yo, I really like that, that was cool, that's the biggest win. That's amazing. And if on top of that, other people like listen to my music and they like really enjoy it and they come to my concerts and things like that, that's even like, whoa, that's the cherry on top. But for me, the main goal is to have like a few people that I'm like, oh, I really like the stuff they do, come to me and be like, that was cool. I'm like, yes, this is success to me.
And you, Stefano, when you have the artist hat, what are your expectations?
I stopped giving expectations to myself in a way because, yeah, as Aslan said, the music industry is so weird, and what makes a song a hit or what makes it successful, it's very hard to grasp. On all the things that I released as an artist or a co-artist or, part of an ensemble as a writer, the most important aspect for me is the live aspect, the performance, right? So I release something and I don't really care of the numbers of Spotify, etc. What I really like is performing that song live in front of an audience and see the real reaction, see if people are dancing to the song, if, people are enjoying themselves. When we come off stage, people coming closer and say, amazing, I really like the new songs, or, I really enjoyed your gig. So I guess, yeah, that is what I expect the most, to understand the real connection with people. Other than that, yeah, it's very hard to expect anything from streaming platform or from the music industry in general. So generally speaking, if I release something, it's because I'm really happy of what I did, again, I might have listened to the song three like 1 year after and said, oh yeah, well, I can do better now, but it's still, if it's out, it means I'm happy in this moment. So that's the best achievement, because many artists have so many songs in their laptop. It's unbelievable. I know. Like I talked to so many people and said, oh yeah, I have 3 albums worth of music, but it's in my garage band or it's my laptop. I said, okay, why you're not working on them? You're not gonna probably be realistic. You're not gonna make a difference, but it's working on some songs and releasing them. You won't become Taylor Swift or any major artist overnight, but it's a milestone. It's for you. It's a chapter of your life, and you can move on from there, and you can always go back and say, oh, I did that. And so releasing something is the best achievement and the best expectation you can get for your work, I think. And then whatever comes, yeah, if you do things for yourself and you're happy with it, you're already one step ahead, and whatever comes, happy days.
Like your relationship, both of you, I think, to music is close to the relationship I have to this podcast, in the sense that I'm doing this mostly for myself, to talk to interesting people. And like, if more people listen to that and are happy about it and can also get to listen to these interesting people I'm talking with, great. But mostly it's for myself, right? And so I feel like the expectations there on your artist side and on my podcast artist, I'm going to say, side, resonate. I'm leaving one subject for the end, and we're getting close to the allotted time. But I know Asli really wanted to know, Stefano, how you made the journey from working in tech to getting out of tech and now working in the music industry. Can you share a bit of the why, although you have shared a bit already, of the how, etc.?
Sure. So how I got out of tech and got myself full-time into music, behind anything you can say about, I've studied music all my life and, studied music production and recording engineering as a side gig while I was working. So I put my hours, of course. But at some point in my life, I reached some financial stability that I said to myself, okay, I'm turning 40 now. Do you want to keep doing this for another 10 years? Or is it time for you to, give this a chance and see what happens, I'm lucky enough to be living in Dublin, so there's really tech jobs. You can take them off the ground, really. Like, there's companies constantly hiring. So I remember I'm going to try this and see what happens. If it if I can't make it full time, just go back into tech. And I don't really want to, but it's always good to have a safe net. The thing is, once you start that journey, you start seeing all the opportunities. I'm not doing only music production for artists. I write music for TV as well. I do other work into audio, editing of podcasts and audiobooks. So there's so much that you can do with that knowledge that eventually, you may end up working a lot more hours and a lot more days. Salary wise is not going to be the same as a tech worker. Absolutely not. But you are in charge of your time. You can decide what you do. Every day is different. You have different projects to work on. And it's not for everyone, of course. But I really wanted to try this after working for 20 years in tech. So I said, okay, this is it. And it's interesting because I was reading an article a few days ago, and apparently the 40 years of age is kind of the gap year, for in a person's life where, it's very common that a lot of people, when they turn 40, they change career completely, or they move to a different country, or start, I don't know, making wine or craft beers, anything can happen. And it makes sense. That was a real drive of, do you want to keep doing this for another 10, 15 years? Or do you want to give this a go? And yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Knowing what you do now, would you have stayed in tech for 20 years?
No.
No. Okay, shit. Damn. I have to ask myself some questions now.
Working in the music industry, whatever it is, as an artist, as a producer, as a recording engineer, as a composer, it is hard. And it takes a long, you're there for the long haul. And if you start doing that at, a young age, it might take forever or a very long time to get into some sort of, financial stability where you can, keep progressing, keep doing that what you like, progress on top of that. So I always say to other people that, ask me the same question, what do you suggest? Find some sort of financial stability while you build this first. And then, you can, I don't know in the rest of Europe, but in Ireland, if you're a musician, you're not going to get a mortgage. If you're a music producer, you're not going to, the bank will look at you and say, well, maybe go find a real job. So it's better to have that part at the beginning while you keep studying and while you keep progressing and you keep, building the other career. And when you see the opportunity, just go or try, you can always go back.
So the strategy is sound.
In more ways than one. I have a personal question. Did you enjoy at some point your work in tech, or was it just a means to an end?
I did, actually. Yeah. While preparing for this interview, I always thought, was I first a musician or was I first tech passionate? I couldn't remember what came first because I've always been passionate about both things, So I guess when I started working in tech, the environment was very different. See, there were a few less constraints. And I started this in Italy with very small companies. So, the environment was very different. But I really enjoyed the discovery, the experimentation and, learning new stuff, that really drive me. And again, the problem solving part, always enjoyed that. I felt maybe as I grew older, all these things were, kind of disappearing. I spent the last 2-3 years as a system engineer more in meetings than other stuff. And, most of the time useless meetings. So it all changed in a way. I see a lot of people having so much passion when they work in startups because everything is, running and, you change something, you build something as you go so that you get that sense of achievement, every week, every day, you see the actual product come to life. Once you start working in big companies, all the changes are, takes forever. So it kind of sucked the joy out of that work. And that's what happened to me.
Okay. I like to end these episodes usually with a question of if you were talking to a junior person in tech subject, what would you tell them? Here it's going to be a bit more difficult to ask this kind of question, but for someone that doesn't know much about the history of music or the theory of music, where should they go to learn a bit, to learn enough to be dangerous?
Start with what you like. So don't worry about, I must acquire all the knowledge. Worry about what do you like and go deeper into that. And then it'll seep through into the rest eventually. But if you don't enjoy what you're studying, you're not gonna, it's gonna be really hard to sustain. So go, your favorite artist, go look up what musical movement they were a part of, what era, who else were their peers and things like that. And then if you want to get into so that's for like the social like side of it, cultural side of it. And if you want to get into the music theory, try and break down the songs and learn what you can about chord patterns and melodies and song structures, and see if there's patterns that come back that you particularly enjoy. See what you like, compare the songs that you like the most. Go based off of enjoyment, I'd say.
Yeah, that's very important. Music first and foremost is joy and is being playful and, enjoy what you do. So if you want to get into music, don't start with music theory. It will suck the joy out of you immediately. You always have time to, go deeper into what you do. But if you like rock music, get together with some friends, make some noise in a room, and start building on top of that. If you like hip hop and you write cool lyrics, just start doing that. Get around people that enjoy what you enjoy and get part of the community of the music that you like. If you are into music production or recording, and there's so much on YouTube at the moment that, you can really make it could be also confusing, but you can have a sense of, okay, what do I need if I want to record my voice? What do I need if I want to record my guitar? So start with simple questions and what you really like. And there's always a path that you can follow, but definitely don't do it alone. Find somebody else that can help you or that you can do it with.
Also, leave judgment out of the room.
I was gonna say that, yeah, you can probably be your harshest critic, and I guess that's what you meant with leave judgment out of the room. Thank you both very much. It was super interesting. It was a glimpse into a world I'm not used to seeing because I'm not artsy a lot, but it was really, really interesting. Thank you both very much.
Thank you for setting this up. It was interesting. And also to be able to hear your trajectory, Stefano. It's interesting to know.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And yeah, it was a really interesting conversation.